thanks for joining us on another episode of Tea and Trowels, FPAN's new web series featuring conversations with archaeologists about the research and what archaeology means to them. I'm Emma Dietrich, one of your hosts. Today I'm happy to be joined by a friend, colleague, and an amazing professor, Dr. John Worth. Thanks for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your mug?
Yes, I'm John Worth, and I'm today drinking one of my favorite afternoon things, and that would be Cuban coffee. So these are little teeny mugs that I got when I was in Cuba back in 2004 or 5 or something. So, and this is real Cuban coffee. So anyway, very tasty.
Oh. Is that from when you were in Cuba? Do you still have a stash, or are you able to get it locally?
Oh no, it's from when I was in Cuba. So I guard it very carefully, because when you go down on a license from the Treasury Department, you only get what you can bring back on you. So, it's just something that I keep for special occasions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for breaking it out for our Teas and Trowels. I'm going to say my mug is special for you. It is a Munsell soil mug, which is how archaeologists gauge the color of soils. And it is actually the 5YR Munsell soil palette. So a little bit of some Florida clay. So we'll start off with our first question. What made you want to become an archaeologist, or why did you become an archaeologist?
Wow. I've been saying that I was going to be an archaeologist since I was about 10 years old in 4th grade. And I remember an early presentation in school where a biblical archaeologist came to the class, just sort of one of the parents, and showed off some objects that he had from the museum at Emory in Atlanta. But I think my interest in archaeology began really with just an interest in the past in general. I was equally interested in dinosaurs and paleontology and archaeology and anything related to ancient times, ancient people. So I don't know, over time I just sort of settled on the human past, and the more I got into it, the more I liked it. I'm actually a product of public archaeology. Since I got interested so early, I did my first field school at 15 as a high school volunteer. That next year I did an internship, sort of an informal thing in the lab, just to see if I liked lab work. And all of those things told me that, yes, I was really suited for archaeology. And, I just pursued it. A lot of people say they were originally interested in archaeology, but I'm one of the few, I guess, that, started out and just never really varied from that course and ended up doing exactly what I planned from 40 years ago.
Same here. That's how, as a child, and public archaeology, it really does something. I mean, it forces you to become an archaeologist. So props to FPAN to creating a whole bunch of future archaeologists.
Very much.
So our next question is, in about 30 seconds or less, do you want to tell us a little bit about your research?
Yes, my current research in the last several decades have been focused on European colonialism and Native American responses to it in the southeastern United States, although I've sort of expanded to include Cuba and Mexico. Spanish Florida, research into culture contact between settlers, missionaries, soldiers, explorers, and the native chieftains, what happened to them over the course of many generations, and how we can read, document, and archaeological evidence and interpret more about what happened during that turbulent era that sort of prefigured modern times.
I was going to say, my first field school in Florida was with you at Molina. Do you want a quick little tidbit about Molina, which is still one of my favorite Florida archaeological sites that are a little more unknown?
That's true. Well, Molina was really an amazing site for me, and still is. I came to Pensacola, and no Spanish missions and native villages with missions in them had ever been excavated or even identified. And I was told when I got here that, the chances of me actually being able to pin down a mission location and find it and then excavate it were pretty slim. But I just went ahead and did it. And our first field school, within 5 weeks, we had identified this 18th century Appalachian mission. And amazing site, great preservation, well, everything but animal bone. And really amazing site. And we had 6 years of field work out there, really phenomenal. You were, of course, there, I guess, for the last year that we were out there. But it holds many more secrets. I'm finally getting around to, there's a chapter that I put in an upcoming volume on Florida mission research. And so beginning to get a little more word out about what we've done, and still got to pull together sort of a technical report. I didn't anticipate getting sidetracked by the Tristan da Luna settlement, but that is what happened. So still, I come back to it periodically, and I'm always interested in anything related to Spanish contact and Pensacola.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I did not actually mention Luna specifically because now I guess my allegiance are supposed to be to St. Augustine. But just for giggles, do you want to just a quick, again, 30 seconds or less, talk about Luna?
Sure. Well, the Luna expedition was the third attempted Spanish settlement, formally authorized settlement attempt in Florida. It occurred in 1559. It was royally financed because the King of Spain was sick and tired of all these privately financed expeditions failing and their leaders dying. So Luna was financed, and they launched from Veracruz, and their goal was to establish a foothold at Pensacola, go across the interior, follow Hernando de Soto's route, and then eventually set up a colony on the Atlantic coast. So the king was mostly interested in the Atlantic coast, and that's why when Luna's expedition ultimately failed and they withdrew, the goal of Luna never changed. And so when Pedro Menendez de Avilés established St. Augustine, one of his first acts was to go up and basically achieve Luna's original goal, which was to settle and establish a port at Santa Elena, modern day Parris Island, South Carolina. So basically, the Menendez expedition was the fulfillment of what Luna's original attempt had been when he launched in 1559, 6 years before St. Augustine. But of course, St. Augustine was the actual success. So it actually survived and is still here today. So, you know, Luna was not as fortunate.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. And I think that also helps clarify the little bit of rivalry between Pensacola and St. Augustine that is getting a bit intense after a while.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a fun rivalry. It's always in jest because, of course, even though the Luna settlement was preceded St. Augustine by 6 years, it only lasted, 2 years. And so St. Augustine in 1565 lasted for hundreds of years, and that's got to count for something. So I'd say both sides have something to be proud of.
Exactly. So our next question is about your toolkit. Do you have a favorite tool, and can you show it to us?
I can. I brought a few, but other than, the standard favorite is obviously the trowel, but that's not my favorite that I'm going to talk about. What I really want to talk about is something that's not well known and well used, and that is ice cream scoops, or technically they're called ice cream spades. So you can get them at specialty cooking shops. It's not like the type of round scoop that you use normally that has a mechanism. These are spades, and these things are great. This one in particular is perfectly shaped so that it can go in and scoop out the inside of a post hole or a rounded edge of a trash pit, and it's just wonderful. So I'm sort of almost like an evangelist for the ice cream spade as an archaeological tool. And every time I show it to students or even colleagues in the field and they try it out, they're like, "Ooh, this is really good." So yeah, so that's kind of my favorite. I have several, and I eventually lose them or something. So ultimately, I've gone through quite a few.
I have one in my field kit because of you. So.
Oh yes, that's right. Part of my mission, yes, I give them out as gifts to my supervisors.
Yes, it was very well used and very well loved. I'm not gonna lie. So what is your best, worst field story? So something that happened that you can now laugh about from the field.
Wow. Well, I thought about this one incident, and I'm not sure. I mean, I guess I can laugh about it now, but it was pretty terrible at the time. It was 1989, and I was out on an excavation at a Spanish mission site known as Fig Springs. We were digging in a early 17th century mission, and for some reason we were out there with in the deepest of winter, and it was 19 degrees outside, and it was actually snow flurries were falling. Here it is in Ichetuckney State Park in Florida. So, definitely weird times. I was out there helping as a graduate student supervise a whole bunch of Smithsonian research associate volunteers. They came and they paid like to come and spend 2 weeks with us. Anyway, they're a nice group of people, but completely new to the field. And I remember I was out there and I had been using a metal detector in this one excavation unit, 2 by 2 meters. And we knew there was something down in this one stain. And we knew there was something. So I kept putting a little X and I knew it was coming up soon. Anyway, I was standing around and one of our volunteers, an elderly lady, really, really nice, but maybe not as careful as she should have been, very enthusiastic. She was shoveling and popped up a beautiful little brass ring. This was a mission, so they gave out little baubles like that. Anyway, first thing she did, I was standing above her, and first thing she did was she reached down and she picked it up and kind of took a look at it, and I could briefly see that it had a little turquoise setting, like a stone, probably glass. Anyway, first thing she did, she had gloves on because it was really cold, and she decided she wanted to clean the surface of the stone, and boom, pop, it flipped out, and we never found it again. So that was the first and last time I found a gemstone. I mean, obviously it was probably cheap, but cheap glass. But I I was not real happy we lost it because it was just a brass ring with a little void in it after that point. I don't know, that was one of my little moments when I was very displeased, but what can you do? She was very excited. She apologized for having accidentally popped it out, but 350 years old piece of oxidized glass is real fragile. So that's one story that I tell. Let me tell you another one real quick though. That's an excellent little story. That's good. That's, I don't know, one of my little moments, that these little things that happen in archaeology. 1986, I was out with a crew of volunteers, most of my fellow students, down in central Georgia. It was 105 degrees in Fort Valley, Georgia. So middle Georgia, super hot, ungodly, humid. We were down in a swamp bottom. And I remember we were digging and digging in this platform mound dated to the Soto expedition period. And we were out there and literally about ready to just pass out and give up. But the landowner knew how hot it was and knew how hard we were working. And we hear his car drive up, and he walked over, and his wife and he had put together two tubs of peach ice cream, fresh peach ice cream. It's in Peach County across the river where they live. So they brought us this wonderful peach ice cream. And I just remember that as being like one of the most amazing moments in field archaeology when, the conditions are awful, but due to the kindness of the landowner and this amazing peach ice cream, it's just something that stuck with me. One of those little stories that, I'll remember forever. Little gesture of kindness.
And then you also had the ice cream scoop, so you were good to go.
I think that may have been before I learned about the ice cream scoop's utility.
All right, so our technically next to last question is, how do you think archaeology can help save the world?
Well, wow. I've been giving that some thought. I guess to my mind, archaeology is the only, I guess it is the only discipline, the only academic discipline that digs into humanity's really, really deep past. And archaeology allows us the ability to view the fact that humanity, our culture, our cultures have been in place and have been developing and changing and interacting for, well, tens of thousands of years. And so to me, at least, what archaeology does is it, more so than history, archaeology provides modern generations, modern peoples with a perspective on time depth and on how long cultures have been in places. And to me, at least, just that recognition, just that awareness of how ancient and how different many cultures were from one another in different places and regions, and also over time. But simultaneously, in addition to being different from one another and changing and evolving, they're also all the same in a way. We're all people. And so it's interesting. You can go and excavate and learn about a culture that is radically different. They're using stone tools and we know very little about them, but you can still see the humanity in the stories we can generate based on the archaeological work. So I guess to me, at least, that's the that's what I would say is if archaeology is going to contribute to saving the world, it will be mostly in the way of giving people who learn about archaeology and what we found that deep time perspective, and sort of gives you a comforting, to me at least, a comforting feeling to know that humanity's been around for a very, very long time. And even though we've made many mistakes and we keep making many mistakes, humanity is remarkably resilient and adapts to things, and that's comforting.
Yeah, just like we're adapting with our public outreach during this time.
That's true. That's a very good point. This time is characterized by adaptation. We're all having to do it, and see there, we're making do.
Exactly. Keeping with that slight theme, our bonus question is: what is keeping you sane during this era, time, pandemic, etc.?
Oh goodness. Well, I don't have much time for this, but what honestly I have found is that, and I know this makes me a serious research nerd, but what I like to do is jump into documents, Spanish documents. I'll look through digital imagery of manuscript collections that I've researched, or I'll pull down interesting old 16th century, 17th century books from Google Books online, and I'll just go through and transcribe and maybe do some translating. I'll sort through documents and I'll look through lists of material culture. And as boring as that may sound to some people, to me at least, that's what I do in my off time. That's what I do to sort of invigorate myself and inspire myself. So yeah, the opportunity to take that little window through my computer screen, which is kind of a lot of what we see these days. I'm able to do research and pursue my passion, my interest that way. Now, that being said, I do have to get out every once in a while, so I do take little hikes in the woods where I can do some serious social distancing and enjoy, the out of doors. So that's a very nice thing too. You got to balance the one with the other.
Now, sounds like a nice, entertaining time to keep busy. Well, that is all of our questions for the day. So thank you for joining us. And
Thank you.
Good luck, and I hope everyone stays safe and sound, and that you're nicely tucked away in Pensacola.
Same to you. Hope you're enjoying the opportunity to get to know your house more.